In this video, we are going to take a look at one of the most incredible AI tools to have come out in this new AI art era. And it's called the Photoshop Generative Fill feature. So the next few videos, we're going to take a deep dive into just different aspects of using this tool. But essentially, Photoshop Generative Fill uses AI, specifically Adobe's Firefly AI, to analyze and change images. And it's really incredible. I'm excited to show you just the various applications in which we can use it. So the first application that I'm going to show you in this video is for scene expansion. So the reason why you may want to expand a frame beyond just art directing and, wanting more of what is there is whenever you are working in AI, specifically with cinematography or VFX, typically you want more of your frame than what is there. So for example, if this was our sci-fi shot and we agree from a storytelling perspective, this is exactly the shot that we want. Well, the problem is if we then decide that we want to have a dolly, like let's say the camera starts on the left and then is moving to the right, or it's slowly pushing in, or even if there's camera shake, what we're going to have to do to facilitate that so we don't get the black borders on the edges is punch in. So we'd have to punch in order to facilitate things like, let's say, this camera shake here. But then now the composition is completely different. Like it's telling a completely different story. You can't see the person in the background and, it's just not ideal. So it's a really good form, especially when you're doing visual effects work and some of the cinematography techniques that we'll talk about in this week to expand out your edges. So let's take a look at this new tool. Now, in order to use Photoshop Generative Fill at this point, you need to use the beta version of Photoshop, which you can download from Creative Cloud, no problem. As long as you have a Creative Cloud subscription, you can download the beta. I'm sure this will be just included in regular Photoshop in the future, and if you're watching this in the future and it is included, great, good for you. So let's go ahead and go to Open and go to the folder that has the student assets for this module. So let's kick things off. I'm going to select this cool sci-fi image. I'm going to hit Open here. We're inside Photoshop now, and if you're new to Photoshop, don't worry, I'll walk you through every step of the process here. So Photoshop has this toolbar on the left. I'm going to go ahead and select this magnifying glass. We'll just zoom in here. And Photoshop is really, it could be as simple as you want it to be, or it can be as complex. I'll try to keep things really simple here. Now, in order to expand this image, we'll go to this crop tool here. And usually the crop tool, you like crop an image, you make it smaller, but you actually can expand the image. So I'm going to go up here and just expand our frame here, and I'll expand our frame down here, just like that. And we'll go ahead and hit the check mark. So now we can select the rectangle marquee tool here and just make a rectangle over the white part of the image here at the top. And holding down Shift, it's important to hold down the Shift, you can select the bottom part too. And it's important to make sure that your rectangle is touching the actual image part so you don't get the white line in there. We want to completely remove that. So now with both the top and the bottom selected, you can go to Generative Fill, and you could describe what you wanted to see if you wanted to like art direct something new up here, but I think it's going to do a pretty good job at changing the tops and bottoms here. So I'm going to hit Generate to see what it gives us. Okay, so as you can see, it's done an amazing job. So you can see like it gave her like this cool sci-fi belt. It incorporated the brown cloth texture here. Let me zoom in so we can take a deeper look here. Incorporated the brown cloth texture. Her arm is continued with this like red, cool, futuristic like pattern thing. The ground looks the same with like the depth of field and everything. And if we go to the top, it's kind of the same story here. This like ship or whatever the heck this is in the background is extended. It's just really, really cool. So I'm going to zoom out. I'm holding down Option when I click zoom here, and it's just zooming out. Now, it also gives you 3 total variants. So that was only variant number 1. We can look at variant number 2, which looks really cool. It's like art directed some new pattern down here and like a cool like V formation, like the chest plate here. Super cool. And then the final one, I actually think, man, this final one might be the coolest one yet. I love this like utility, like ammo belt or whatever. Very, very cool. So I actually like this third one. So look, you don't have to do anything else. If you wanted it to run again, you could hit Generate and it would run it again as well. So I'm going to zoom out and let's go ahead and expand the edges now. So the left and right side. So I'm going to expand it to the right here. and expand it to the left. And I like how in Photoshop, you see, as I move this, it's telling me how wide it is in terms of pixels. So if you want to get really meticulous with like, oh, I only want it to be 19, 20 pixels, you could dial that in. I always like having more resolution than what I actually need, just because it looks sharper whenever you start scaling it down. So I am going to drop it off there so that our subject is in the middle. And now exactly the same way like we did before, we're going to select the left side, hold down Shift, select the right side, and now go to Generative Fill and hit Generate. Okay, cool. So it expanded the edges here. You can see it like clearly assumes that it's got like dark over here. This edge over here has this really nice snow that looks similar to this snow over here. I mean, really, like this is just a stunning image, right? But let's look through our variants here. So we have this variant, which looks really cool. And then this variant over here, and looks like we have some new out of focus character over here. So these all look amazing. I think the first one, maybe this one. I like that it has a light over here. It's not so dark. I feel like the dark was a little distracting. So there you go. So now we have an expanded image. We could re-roll this. But ultimately, if we were happy with the way that this image turned out, you can go to File, and you can save as, and you could save it as like a Photoshop format that you can come back to. And you can also import Photoshop image files into tools like After Effects, or you can simply go over here to Export and Export As. And it will give you all of these formats that you can export as. I'm going to select PNG. It's a pretty good quality format. And, you know, all the default settings are good. And you can hit Export, and then it would save it to your computer. Cool. So this one did a great job. Now, I want to show you an example where Generative Fill needs help and may require a little bit of human intervention to just take the scene further. So let's import this disaster scene here. And I'm going to do just very quickly the same thing that we did in the previous image. Use the crop tool to expand, marquee tool, select the top, and select the bottom. Generative Fill, and then generate. So now it's just going to reprocess. So now it's just going to reprocess the image roller. Okay, great. And if we zoom in here, I mean, obviously, like, it's pretty cool, what it's done so far. But you can see that there are some weird streaks right here. Like, there's a harsh line that basically where the frame of the image was. So it didn't do a great job with blending the color profile there. So you would probably have to go in by hand to smooth out those edges if you wanted to. One tool that you can use, if you hit the S key, it's the clone stamp tool. It's just one of the many tools that are available to you inside of Photoshop. And to use it, you can see that it's not allowing me to use it right now because the generative fill is on like its own layer here. So in order to use it, I'm going to duplicate the background. And to duplicate, you just hit Command J. And you can select, holding down Shift, the background layer and that top layer. Hit Command E to combine all of those layers together. So now we have essentially a single image. And then the original background image that is currently locked. So to use the clone stamp tool, you just sample from an area that you want to pull from. So let's say that that area is like right here. So now I'm going to hold down Option. You see I get this target. I'm going to select right above where the streak is. And then I'm going to come down here. And as soon as I start clicking, it's going to pull reference pixels from here and put them here. And you can adjust all the settings here. So I can adjust the opacity and the flow. I can adjust the brush, like the hardness. I can turn up or down. Usually with this tool, the hardness being low is better. So you have complete control over all of those things. I'm going to turn the flow down to, let's say 33% or about 30%. And really what that's going to do, the flow is basically the amount of pixels that are brought back with each stroke. So if I was at 33% and I went over it 3 times, we would get 100% of the pixels. But if I went over it once, 33%. So, yeah. So let me go ahead. I'm just going to brush over this area here. You can see that in doing a quick brush just in that area, it's removing that harsh line. So you can't really see the line very much now. Whoop, too close. So you can see that at least in that part that we brushed over, it's much, much more smooth, and you could go in and, get super fancy with it if you wanted to. Same thing for down here. You could use the clone stamp tool. You could also use the content aware tool. It's completely up to you, but that's just a limitation that is inside this generative tool. And also you could just keep rolling the generative fill to hypothetically remove the line if you wanted to. It's a back and forth process, and ultimately, as a creative, you just get to pick how you are going to solve those creative problems. So I'm going to do the last image here. Let's do a scene that's not just like a person looking at the camera. So I have this scene of this horse, close up of this horse snout here. And again, we're going to expand the frame here, expand it all the way to 1080, and then select that and select that, generate the fill and generate. Okay, so this one did a really, really good job. You can see that if we zoom in here, like these out of focus rocks are retaining the lens qualities that you would expect with like a macro image like this. The horse's, like the texturing of its snout was brought into this area over here, but it knew that this part would be closer to the camera, so it's a little out of focus compared to this part, which is in the appropriate focal range for this lens. So did a really, really nice job. And again, we can do the exact same thing on the edges here. I'll just expand this out here, expand this out here. Maybe it's a little too wide. Just do about like that. And again, select the rectangle marquee tool, hold down shift, rectangle marquee tool, generative fill, and generate. So let's see what it gives us. Okay, so again, you may want to go in and clean up some of the edges if you have any. But over here, the edge, I mean, I can't recall that there's an edge. Maybe you can tell right here, but I don't think in any quick scene you would ever be able to tell. But right here, you could use, let's say the clone stamp tool or another tool just to clean up right there. But generally, the scene just looks really amazing. So there you go. That's how to expand edges using the generative fill.